Hi and welcome. Today I want to show you something that's so cool. You're going to have loads of fun with this, okay? One of the things I love to do is just jam on the guitar, play some random chords and make some lovely music. I'm going to show you how to do that, okay? And this little trick, technique, whatever you want to call it, this lesson, okay, it's going to help you. Just jam any place, anytime with any chords. You could give me any random chords and I'd have fun using this technique. But we're also going to learn about rhythm, we're going to learn about finger picking, using a pick and playing around the fretboard as well. So there's going to be a lot of fun to be had here, okay? But let's dive in, okay? The main thing we want to talk about to begin with is the C chord, okay? First of all, you're going to play the C chord, okay? Now most people get a bit bored just playing that chord and doing the same old and you know, that sort of stuff. And then it's just like, what chords go well with that? They might learn a chord progression like C, A minor, F, and G. And then they get a little bit bored. I mean, sure, yeah, you can play loads of songs with those chords, you know, Unchained Melody and stuff like that. You know, there's millions and millions, well, not millions, but you know what I mean? Thousands of songs that, you know, you could play using those chords. But when anybody hands you a guitar and says, hey, play us some music and you just want to jam and you want to have a bit of fun, you need to know how to do that, okay? And one of the key secrets is having a template, okay? And what I mean by a template is a pattern. And use this pattern as a template to bounce off, okay? So you build, it's like a foundation, and then you build the layers of a really cool skyscraper on top of it, okay? So a little pattern you can do is this one, okay? It's a nice simple kind of pick strum pattern, like this. Okay? And you might think, well, that doesn't sound that fancy yet, and you're right, but that's just the basics, okay? But then after a while, you can start doing stuff like this with it. You know, stuff like that. And okay, that's just a simple C, A minor, F, major 7, G chord progression. But you can see, just having that little template, it allows you to flourish, okay? And really just go to town. But you got to start with a basic pattern. And the basic pattern then is going to be this. With your fingers, you got your thumb on the A string, which is the root note for the C chord, index on the G, middle on the B, ring on the high E. And you just pinch all those together. A little secret, if you are a finger picker though, which many of my students are, don't finger pick it like this. Watch my right hand closely. Try and pick it more like this. Bring your thumb further up the string, okay? You get a better tone and it stops your fingers and thumb sort of collapsing into each other, okay? So what you do, pinch those 4 strings, the A, G, B and high E. Then thumb on the A string. Then a pinch of the 4 strings again. And thumb on the A. That just starts us off with the first 2 beats. 1 and 2 and then you get the little melody, which is where we can start embellishing it in a minute. And the melody here, the basic template is this. Okay, and what we're doing now is hammering on the B string from fret 1 to 3. Practice that with the pinky, get that pinky hammer on good. Okay, once you got that, open high E string, B string after you've removed the pinky, so it's B string at the first fret. Okay, so you got this so far with a melody. 4 notes there, and then again. And finally, last 2 notes, open G, first fret of the B. So 6 note melody, and it's like this. And that's the correct rhythm the second time. Okay, and all together. And you can play about with that on different chords like A minor. Then F major 7. And vary it slightly. There I did a pull off from fret 3 of the high E string to open high E. And then you can play a G7 if you want for an old school sort of classic sound. That gives a bit of tension in an old school sound, but if you want a more modern sound, go with the G major. You know, you can do that sort of thing on a G major if you really want, but putting it all together, you can then build on that. So you practice that basic template. Go back to the C chord. Then we can start adding extra notes in, which is where the fun really happens, okay? You know, just work on the C to A minor to start with if you want. See that? I'm just changing up the notes, changing up the rhythm. And this is where you got to experiment, okay? You could sit there and say, oh, well, I could sit there and say, oh, do this, this, and this, okay? And then do this, this, and this, okay? But, you know, in a short little YouTube video, that's not the whole point. The point is that you get the template and you experiment, because the more you experiment, the better it is. Did I get good at playing guitar by learning everything note for note exactly as somebody taught me? No, I took ideas and then I started experimenting. Okay, and one of the key things is getting good at your subdivisions, your rhythms, okay? Because basically we've got the first 2 beats, 1 and 2 and, okay? That's pretty solid, but the next 2 beats in the bar, okay? We can do loads of different things. We can use 8th notes or 16th notes, okay? And 8th notes just sound like this. Okay, like 1 and 2 and 16th notes that sound like this. 1 and a 2 and a, okay? But we apply those different rhythms, mix and match them in with the chords, okay? And I'll give you an example. You know, if we was just to do that melody bit with 8th notes, it would sound quite boring. Okay, it's quite sweet really. And then if we was to do it with 16th notes, it would sound like this. Okay, again, quite sweet. But hear the 16th notes. But then you can mix and match the 8th notes and the 16th notes and different strings and different notes. If you want to play about with it, you basically just use 3rd fret of the B string, open B, and then 3rd fret of the high E, open high E. And you apply those different rhythms, okay? And here's just some examples. Okay, and we're just mixing and matching. I'm just being a bit random there, but playing about with it. And the idea behind this lesson is just to inspire, give you some ideas. You know, all I did there with that ending chord, that's a type of G chord, by the way. Okay, and we got this from the F major 7, 3rd fret D string, 2nd fret G, 1st fret of the B, open high E. And then you can move that up 2 frets. So you got 5th fret D, 4th fret G, 3rd fret B, and then you can put your pinky on if you want, 5th fret high E. You get a nice sweet sounding G, add 9, okay, and then at the end, just added a bit of melody, open G string, 5th fret high E, slide to 7, 7 to 8, and then we did a dyad, which is fret 10 of the high E, 9 of the D, and then fret 12 of the high E, and 10 of the D. And that just finishes off with a type of C chord. So you can start moving around the fretboard as well with this sort of thing. Okay, this is just a little bit of a taster. I hope this gives you some inspiration for ideas, okay? Remember, rhythm is absolutely everything. If you want to use a pick, you know, you can play this sort of stuff with a pick. You know, you just strum it like that. Play about with that G chord if you want, but that's just taking a few boring little chords and just playing about with it. There's going to be times where you play this better than others. There's going to be times where you think, oh, this is cool, it's really clicking, really sounds good in the groove. There's going to be times where you're like, I'm not so good today. Why? Sometimes just concentration, sometimes just feel, sometimes just getting in that mood. But if you ever want to get into the groove, you know, into the mood as well, then just play the chords, just tap your foot to the beats, get solid rhythm going. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you could just play it sort of 1. You're gonna have endless fun. And that's just with those chords. You can play on any chords, bar chords if you want. You know, you can play about with those ideas using different chords, bar chords, open chords, anything you like. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, you can check out my book, Fingerstyle 101. Go to fingerstyle101.com/book. You can find out more about it there. Got the spiral bound version. Okay, that pattern that we just did, the basic pattern, you'll find in the book on page number 90. Okay, it's called the Sweet Melody Pattern. behave. Okay, it's called the Sweet Melody Pattern, and you can find out more about it in the book. But if you want more stuff from me, check out this video as well. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers. Bye bye.